We are just 25 days away from an election in Wisconsin that's drawing national attention, including from billionaire Elon Musk. On April 1st, no fooling, voters will choose a new state Supreme Court justice, and the results will determine the ideological balance of the court. That's a huge deal. Danny Spiewak is here to explain.
Jana, the April 1st race in Wisconsin will determine whether the liberal justices keep their majority on the court or if the conservatives flip the court. With key issues like abortion hinging on the election, the race is shaping up to be potentially the most expensive state Supreme Court race in American history. After serving as a battleground state in the November election, Wisconsin is now shifting its focus to a spring election for state Supreme Court.
It's hard to overstate the significance.
Neil Krause teaches political science at UW River Falls.
Wisconsin is a true swing state. The state Supreme Court is going to decide some huge issues.
The April 1st race is a matchup between two Wisconsin Circuit Court judges, conservative Brad Schimel and liberal Susan Crawford. The winner determines the ideological balance of the court, which will impact rulings on the state's top issues, like workers' rights, the drawing of electoral maps, and perhaps most pressing, abortion rights.
Whether or not abortion is basically going to be, legal going forward, the restrictions the state can put on it.
Although the statewide race is technically nonpartisan, it's drawing the attention of major donors. Elon Musk personally urged followers on X to vote Republican for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and his political action committee has spent millions supporting Schimel. Meanwhile, prominent Democratic donors are spending their own millions helping Crawford's cause, including George Soros and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. The election will provide some insight into how voters are feeling early in the Trump administration.
I think it could be a kind of a referendum on a lot of that stuff.
With KARE 11 reaching thousands of voters in western Wisconsin, we reached out to both candidates for interviews to learn about their platforms. Judge Susan Crawford, a native of the Chippewa Valley, is a former prosecutor and private practice attorney.
I could never have dreamed that I'd be in this position of really fighting against the richest man in the world.
This week, the Wisconsin Democratic Party spent $1 million on a campaign to push back against Musk's support of Schimel, a candidate Crawford called extreme.
He's taken a position saying that there's nothing wrong with an 1849 law in Wisconsin that would be a criminal ban on pretty much all abortions.
Schimel's campaign didn't respond to our request for an interview, but in an interview with the NBC affiliate in Milwaukee, Schimel said abortion rights should be left up to the voters, not the state Supreme Court.
This decision needs to be made by the voters through referendum or through their elected legislative representatives.
Schimel, a former Wisconsin attorney general, accused Crawford and the liberal justices currently on the court of ruling with a partisan bent.
We have to stop this. Judges have to return to being objective, not being influenced by the nature of the party in front of them.
The amount of money in this election is expected to top the historic state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin from just 2 years ago, when liberal justices flipped the court for the first time in 15 years. Meanwhile, in this race, Susan Crawford and Brad Schimel will meet next week for a debate on Wednesday. Jana.
Do they expect turnout to be high in something like a judicial election in April? Because people are kind of sick of politics right now. What are they talking about?
I think obviously compared to a presidential election or a midterm, it'll be much lower. For comparisons, the 2023 was about half of what that Supreme Court race was, about half the turnout of the 2024 presidential election. But for an April election, I think it'll be about as high as it gets because there's so much national interest in this right now.
Fascinating. All right, Danny, appreciate it.